Hey, mister, how about a lift? Yikes, it's Wicked Willie! I must need new glasses.
The real Ghostbusters, each sold separately. New from...
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity, where we talk about drinking culture, pop culture, 1980s cartoon culture, and anything else that comes up. Joining me as always is Brandon.
Hello, my people.
Kale.
Hello.
And Jim.
Hey, everybody.
We are continuing our everlasting discussion of 1980s cartoons. We are on now to 1986. We are going to see where we are. We might do 1986 and 1987. We might put off 1987 until next week. We'll have to see what happens. But of course, more important than cartoons is, of course, drinking. So, Kale, what do you have in mind?
I went down to Texas and I got a shiner.
It's quite a shiner you've got there.
No shiner box.
Went on down to Texas, gonna drink a lot of shiner.
All right, Brandon, what are you having?
It's kind of like cold brew espresso with some scotch in it.
Brandon, I feel like your drinking choices is just like there's like a bingo card and you just randomly plop two things down. It's like it's lemon juice.
I wish it was that organized.
It's like lemon juice and Kahlua, I guess, today with olives in it.
I was where Brandon is on the drinking culture like maybe 5 years ago.
By the way, I'm just kidding. Brandon would never eat an olive.
I'm right there with you, Brandon.
I like the purple ones, the black ones. Those aren't bad.
Oh God, those are the worst. I hate olives. Except I have olives in my martinis. Go figure. Jim, what are you having?
I am having a 1970s style cocktail. It's a Godfather. It's whiskey and amaretto. I made the executive decision to add some lime juice and a little bit of squirt too.
Jim, do you have one of those Flintstone glasses that were collectible during the 80s?
I don't. I wish I did.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's just a regular glass.
We definitely had some of those. I don't know where they are now. I'm sure they're long gone, but
We had Smurf glasses.
Did you get
maybe
them
we had
from
Smurf glasses, or maybe we had both.
Hardee's.
Pizza Hut had the best collectible glasses.
Anyway, so I recently went on a trip down to Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Tennessee, and I bought some whiskey. And so tonight I'm having some Smoke Wagon in a glass. So
I'd have been surprised if it was anywhere else.
call that a mixer. It's whiskey and oxygen.
Smoke wagon with the straw.
I have a
wagon.
really
In my belly.
I have a really basic Iowa whiskey question for you.
I don't know anything about whiskey, but I'll see what I can do.
Cedar Ridge or Templeton? Go.
That depends. So there is a lot of negative feeling towards Templeton because of their history. But honestly, sight unseen, if I was going to have one or the other, I would probably drink Templeton, even though it is not Iowa whiskey, it is Indiana whiskey. And they were fibbing about that for quite a while. And they do have a very nice distillery, and we might take a road trip sometime. We'll all go up there and, tour the Templeton distillery and stuff. I kind of know one of the people that works up there a little bit, so might be fun. But enough about whiskey, said me never. We're going to start off with one that these guys didn't watch. And I got to be honest, I didn't really watch that I can remember very much when I was a kid. But I have gotten the theme song for this cartoon stuck in my head a million times. And that is, of course, Defenders of the Earth.
Out of the sky, his rockets ignite. Jets into battle, flying faster than light. Flash Gordon.
So Defenders of the Earth is Flash Gordon, the Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, and Lothar. And they're basically like just a team up of like famous heroes from yore. And Mandrake the Magician is a magician, as you might assume. Flash Gordon is Flash Gordon, and the Phantom is the Phantom. again, I wish I had more to say about the show. I think that I am mentioning it simply because of the theme song, because it is so good. I don't know. Jim, did you ever read much in the way of Phantom or Flash Gordon type stuff?
Never read Phantom. Read some random issues of Flash Gordon. I was a lot of times I get 3-packs, and they had, I think they're probably Gold Key reprints, but they weren't Gold Key. They were whatever the thing with the W is. I forget.
Wildstorm?
No, back before that. Sometimes they cross-publish DC stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen that. And so instead of the DC logo, they'll have a W. It's Whitman. That's who it is. So Whitman did some 3-packs. So I read some of the Flash Gordon comic book series.
So is Flash Gordon like kind of like Han Solo kind of character, like daring do kind of guy?
I was gonna say, does he have powers? What is his thing?
His powers is he's an awesome American.
Wasn't he an ex-football player?
In the movie, it was. I don't remember about in the comic books.
His power was freedom.
His power was being blonde and muscular. Who is Lothar?
He's Mandrake's assistant, because at that area, if you're going to have a black character, they
Clears
apparently
it
had
up.
to be the assistant of somebody.
Which
That's not super comfortable, but 80s. What can you do?
There's a low Theb in Hearthstone. He's in next Ramus, I think.
So I don't really have anything else to say about Defenders of the Earth, but I mean, just I will be able to put about 5 seconds of the intro on, and you just heard it. And it's better than that. It's great. It's a great theme song. So yeah, go listen to the theme song.
Did you watch any of the episodes?
No, never seen an episode that I can remember. I mean, I probably saw an episode at some point or another. It's one of those things. I'm sure we all saw at least one episode of every one of these at some point, but it was not a regular thing.
is it
I feel like
better
I've
than
never.
the Flash theme song?
I'll just again, Google later on. It's very like 1980s, like hair metal kind of like it's something you could picture being played by like Survivor or like Foreigner or something like that.
Does it sound like the Marky Mark movie?
The Marky Mark movie.
Flash.
That's not Marky Mark.
Brandon, please go on.
He's in that movie with the bear, and they talk to Flash Gordon all the time.
Not familiar with that one at all.
You mean Ted?
Yes.
It's not like a TED Talk, which are way more informative.
Fair enough. This is a very confusing conversation, and none of us have watched the show, so I'm going to move on.
But he mentioned the song that I was getting at was Flash.
Yeah.
Sure. It was exactly like that.
Just like that.
Just like that. It's like I was there.
All right, I'm out.
So the next one, this one I remember watching a fair amount. The Dennis the Menace cartoon show. Did you guys watch this one much at all?
I wouldn't say much, but it was one of those like filler cartoons. Like you'd kind of be waiting for the next good one to come on.
I remember,
and you couldn't just stop watching cartoons. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna watch something. It's like there's those lull cartoons where it's like, between Transformers and G.I. Joe, you've got like,
Dennis the Menace.
Right. By the way, Phil Hartman apparently did the voice for Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, I could say that.
R.I.P. Phil Hartman. It had a good theme song, and it was another one of those like kids doing adventure things. The thing I think is interesting about this was on about the same time as I was watching a lot of like Nick at Night and stuff. And so I would watch the original Dennis the Menace show from the late 1950s and this one, and it almost seemed like they were nearly on at the same time. Were you guys Nick at Night, Dennis the Menace fans?
Yeah, that was cable.
Oh, that's right. You guys didn't have cable.
Yeah, no cable here.
Kale?
When I'm watching Nick at Night, it was usually something else. It was usually like old TV shows.
That's
Well,
what
Dennis the Menace was an old TV. It was a live action show.
Oh, yeah, it was okay. Because I remember the kid going like, "Mr. Wilson." It was black and white.
Yeah, this is 1959. So I think, I don't know. The one I watched, the Nick at Night Owl, was like Dobie Gillis. I remember watching Dobie Gillis a lot.
Is he a house elf?
He was not. He was just a teenager who did teenager things. No, again, not a huge amount to say about it. However, it does have Les Lie played some of the voice roles on it, and he was on a great Nickelodeon show in the 1980s called "You Can't Do This on Television," and he was in like basically every skit. He played like the guy who was the Spanish general who was executing the kids, and he played like the that was a thing. And he played like the school lunch guy. Kale, you remember that one?
Barf.
Yeah, Barf. Yeah. And there was the one where they'd always get their slime dumped on each other's heads. I don't know. He was good.
Dude,
We should talk about Parker Lewis sometime.
If you want to talk about Nickelodeon and like you can't do that on television, we will talk about that. Right now we're talking.
Alanis Morissette, by the way, started off on that show.
Yes.
Kind of weird. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Dennis the Menace. Just a fun. I don't know. I think as a kid, there's sort of the traditional shows like your Transformers and G.I. Joe, where it's like big war things and other things where it's just cool just because it's like, based on imagination. And as a kid, I think it's good to have your imagination kind of expand. And, Dennis the Menace, they, fight ghosts sometimes or whatever. And, I think I like shows like that where kind of, you didn't know, like each episode could be something totally off the wall.
This brings up a different question though. Is your favorite cartoon of all time in the 80s? In this collection of 80s cartoons?
So probably not. I don't know. That's tough to say. I think that the difference is I feel like cartoons, especially our generation, cartoons kind of grew up with us, where we started off with stuff like this, and then you get into the 90s and you have cartoons that are a little bit more adult themed. You have your X-Men and your Batman and your Gargoyles and stuff like that. And then you get into the later period and you have cartoons that are specifically meant for adults. And so I think in many cases, the more adult themed cartoons I like more now, just because I relate to them more. So I think that's a tough question to answer. What about you? What about you guys, all of you?
I think you know my answer.
Is it a barbarian by the name of T?
Exactly.
I mean, there is definitely a difference between like an anime and a cartoon as far as like much more adult situations and more relatable stuff to me now. I would say as far as like a kid's cartoon, though, I probably go to Phineas and Ferb as maybe one of my favorites. And that's definitely not the 80s, but.
Well, to Jim, I say, whatever it is you're into, stick to that. There's no disrespect to that. If you like it, you like it. To Mike, I think you're right. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. It seems like when I think about that, when you made that comment thing, it seems like they grew up with us. It seems like, when I was at a certain age, I liked the cartoons were on then. And then I grew up a little bit and I liked the cartoons that were on then. And then when I got older, I liked the cartoons that were on then. And now that we're adults, barring the stereotype that adults don't watch cartoons, I like the cartoons that are out there now.
Take this as an example. Like, do you think, because Brandon, you and Kale both really like Eat the Cat a lot. Do you think you would have liked Eat the Cat if you were watching it when you were 6 years old or 7 years old?
Well, no.
I don't know. Eat the Cat is one of those rare things that it not only appealed to my sense of humor, I think it helped develop my sense of humor.
I find that there's a lot of things, like I see it when they say there's hidden adult humor in things like Looney Tunes, Eat the Cat, SpongeBob, all those cartoons. Like, if you really watch it and listen, you're getting little bits that some kid isn't going to understand, but to you it's like, oh, haha, I get it. See,
but I think, like, I remember the X-Men animated series, which would be way near the top of my list. I love that show. And I feel like a lot of the topics they were tackling in there were kind of adult, like kind of mature themed, I mean, because X-Men has always been,
it was very political.
Yeah, very political. And also, I mean, X-Men have always been an amalgam, well, at least since Chris Claremont took over anyway, kind of a metaphor for racism, sexism, homophobia. Um, and that sort of carries over to the cartoon. And I don't think if I was watching that show when I was 10 or 8 or 9 that I would have picked up on that.
Well, whether you're picking up on it or not, I think they were trying to send that message on purpose.
Well, actually,
format. That was their deal, was accepting others for their differences.
What do you think was the most sort of subversive cartoon that we've talked about so far? Because I mean, I love GI Joe, but GI Joe is very much sort of establishment focused. You know, the guys in the army costumes are good, and the guys that are terrorists are bad. I don't think Transformers is particularly subversive. Can you think of any cartoons we've talked about so far that are genuinely kind of subversive?
That we talked about so far is definitely harder, more limiting.
Scooby-Doo. I'm kind of being serious.
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, I get that. They would definitely not have been welcome. People dressed like them going to a southern state would not have been particularly welcome.
And making veiled jokes about getting high.
Yeah, no. I apologize.
Shaggy again was very anti-work.
Shaggy was an anti-work icon.
Overall, they were formulaic, though.
Yeah, but I think you can be formulaic. That's not really what I was talking. I just something that sort of, makes you question things and maybe has
formulaic can hide the subversiveness. It can be like a duck blind.
Well, no, I would love to talk about more modern cartoons. I think if we do something like this again, we probably won't go by year. Because I think the 80s just has so many cartoons coming out in such a relatively short period, you kind of have to. Whereas in the 90s and the 2000s, the cartoons, I think there's some great ones, but they're not like coming kind of fast and furious like they were.
Well, and like Jim's got Dragon Ball as his background, and Dragon Ball is one of those ones that is certainly formulaic, but there can be a lot of subversive message in that one too, I think.
I was going to continue on earlier when I addressed Jim about his fondness for Thundar, and I addressed Mike about hitting the nail on the head about what he said. But now what I'm going to say to Brandon is that I find like Dragon Ball Z, a lot of the cartoons that came from Japan, they generally, when they made them, I don't see them as being like, these are for kids. I see them making these cartoons are sending messages to everyone, no matter what age they are.
Oh, there's some you wouldn't even let your kids watch. Definitely. I mean, and I'm not even talking like hentai or something. I mean, there's some that are strictly like adult themed, and kids wouldn't even understand what was going on, really.
Well, I think the other thing is strange about anime, especially in that age, is you're so used to, most of the cartoons had a very, very similar look. I'm sure it's a lot of the same animators that are working on them. And then you see anime and like it has a different look. And I think especially as a kid, it's good to see things that look different, where you see that. And it's like, wow, if you look at, Brandon and Kale in my background and Jim's background, there's a definite difference in art style. And I think that, seeing that difference, especially when you're younger, is a good thing because you see that different things can be good, can all be good.
Well, and you look at like Trigun is one of the big ones that sticks with me, but Trigun in the whole Naruto series is so different than American series. Like cartoons like G.I. Joe and He-Man and all that had a lot of action sequences to them, but there's a lot of like toxic masculinity in a lot of them too. But those two, especially like Vash the Stampede and Naruto himself, have a lot of action sequences. There's a lot of fighting, and they start off kind of toxic, but in the end, they end up learning a lesson about fighting for other people and, accepting everybody and all this kind of stuff. And it's just the kind of thing that drew me into anime in the first place, because it's so much more inclusive and talking about feelings and males having feelings and showing, when something hurts them, it's so much more different than we would get out of a lot of American cartoons.
Trigun is one of my favorite all-time cartoons. I don't know if that's 80s or I think it's probably 90s.
Yeah, I think it's 90s.
But
And as
yeah,
far as
Trigun.
80s subversive cartoons, I would have to say that Simpsons. I know it just tail end there, but Simpsons is probably
It's like Married with Children in cartoon form to me. It's that this dysfunctional family, just and I mean, they take the typical American family, and most shows, live action shows, the sitcoms or whatever, they try to show the typical American family as this functioning family, rather than like Shameless does, where it's like, no, this is how it really is.
By the way, one thing I didn't mention, and it's sort of subversive, I mean, the show always was, is Community in season 5 had an episode called G.I. Jeff, where they basically got the rights to do a G.I. Joe show inside of Community, an animated, had a bunch of the animated characters, and it puts the Community people into it. And yeah, I thought it was really fun.
He was in a coma, wasn't he?
Spoilers.
I haven't seen that one yet. Shh.
By the way, speaking of cartoons, at some point we will probably do something about Rick and Morty because I just finished watching it, and I do have feelings about it, especially regarding Community versus Rick and Morty because it's the same creator, and which one I think is better by a fair amount. But that being said, we sort of have to talk about one very briefly because it's going to be important here in a minute, and that is the Ghostbusters TV show. I saw a few episodes of that here and there. I never really got it. It always seemed like it was very old school for, it seemed like it's a cartoon that came out in 1986 and it felt like it was something from the 1970s. Did you guys watch that one?
sometimes. I always kind of wished I had watched more. I joined the crowd and I was like hoity toity, like, no, the other one's the one from the movie is the best one. But honestly, I think the kind of like a gorilla is running around with him. That could have been interesting. I should have given that one a try.
Yeah, that was sort of one of those things back in that period. It's like, if you don't know what to do, put an ape in it. And it's just like,
it'd be fun to have the gorillas artist, whoever that is, redo that cartoon.
And if people are not aware, the Ghostbusters that are standing behind Kale are not the ones we're talking about. This is the two guys in the car with the gorilla. I don't know a lot about it. It was originally a television show from the 1970s. And it was a live action show with Forrest Tucker and Larry Stork. It actually had Ted Knight on it for one episode, which is kind of neat because Ted Knight's great. And then when they had started making them, and I'm not sure exactly what the order of operations was, Ivan Reitman, who, by the way, just passed away, I think last week at a fairly young age. They have this Ghostbusters idea and they find out that it's been previously made. And so they basically hurry up and buy the rights, but and I think it was from Filmation. But Filmation kept the rights to the cartoon to make TV shows. And so as soon as the Ghostbusters movie came out, they of course rushed this thing out in a heartbeat so they could have something, to cash in on it, which they did. And it's kind of, I think it's regarded by a lot of people as being disappointing, not because of what it is necessarily, because I don't know that much about it. I can't say that it was a bad show. That's kind of a fun theme song. But every kid in the world had just got home from watching Ghostbusters, the movie, and turned this on and was like, why is there an ape there? And so it's kind of funny. I don't know, Jim, what was your experience with the original Ghostbusters?
So I was not aware of the original Ghostbusters. I watched a fair amount of the real Ghostbusters. I do have a comment about the ape, and I may have mentioned this before, but when I was at the Baltimore Comic-Con in the fall, there was a panel of older DC artists, and they were saying that someone, one of the executives at DC, had done market research, and he went around telling people the things that they needed to include in their covers. And the two main things that they needed to include in their covers is the color purple and apes.
That is such
And
great, like 1960s, 1970s logic of just like, put an ape on the cover. Why?
Make it a
I don't know.
purple
People
ape.
like apes.
I was going through a bunch of long boxes of old comics this weekend at a store, and I happened across a DC special edition, like one-off comic. I don't even remember what the title was, but it was 4 mini panels, 4 different heroes, and they are all battling different apes, and one of the apes was purple.
Give the people what they want.
If only
Exactly.
they were doing the Thriller dance.
Rape ape. Rape ape.
Rape ape.
Gail, did you watch the original Ghostbusters?
Oh,
Yeah, not very many people did. I feel like we're starting out kind of weird just because a lot of these are shows that I guess weren't the biggest, but I think they're kind of important. You know what? The next one is the Pound Puppies.
It's the Pound Puppy.
And I don't think really any of us had a lot of experience that I had a Pound Puppy because I was an adorable child.
Did it have
Well, the toys were kind of the big thing because then you'd get like it looked like a Happy Meal cage,
Right. Yeah.
where the Pound Baby would come in.
Yeah, I love my Pound Puppy, and he probably is lost to the world at this point. The introduction is very sad. Like it's like they're trying to be happy, but it's like, please adopt us, please.
Well, we were talking about this right before the show, and you were saying how sad it was, and it is. It's like walking into the ARL, and it's like, buy me, or someone's going to murder me. But on a happier note, I remember my sister had one of the toys. It was a Pound Puppy bat toy, and like on the back of the collar was a little thing, and he had these big floppy ears, so you get him wet, and you'd shake his head back and forth, and he'd shake his wet ears up.
Rub it up, doggy, soft little doggy. It can take a bath with you.
So
by
And
the
you
way,
can name them. I wonder if that was the beginning of like the Build-A-Bear thing, where you could since you could name them and kind of make them your own.
Well, the names of the actual Pound Puppies were Cooler, Bratina, Bright Eyes, Catgut, voiced by Frank Welker, Whopper, and Howler and Holly. So there you go. And I should say, always, if you're going to support shelters, try to support no-kill shelters because, they don't kill, and that's a good thing. Okay, the next one is one that I watched a fair amount, but I have a lot to say more about the cast than anything else. And this is something that's really interesting with the 1980s, because now you have cartoons. Well, I mean, and this is probably a good thing. The cartoons come from kid properties. Kid properties make kid cartoons. When we were kids, they would make cartoons out of anything, which is why there is a Rambo, the Force of Freedom cartoon show.
Rambo.
Of course.
And it had a great theme song. It was super. I mean, it was Rambo. It was freaking Rambo. I thought it was great. It had a real positive environmental message, if I remember right. But the thing that I thought was crazy about this is the cast is just crazy. So Neil Ross plays John Rambo. Neil Ross has been, I think, everything. I mean, he goes all the way back to 1981 is his first cartoon. It looks like he was in G.I. Joe. He was in Transformers. He was in Pole Position, which I'm not sure how we skipped Pole Position. I remember that show reasonably well. Did you guys watch Pole Position?
It's a video game.
No, it was a cartoon. I think it was 84.
I think
I don't remember that.
I did. I don't remember very much about it though.
I just
I
remember
didn't
thinking
know
it was
Rambo
exciting.
was a cartoon.
Which one?
I didn't know Rambo was a cartoon.
It was. So, but the cast. So Neil Ross plays John Rambo. Colonel Troutman is played by Alan Oppenheimer, who was again also everything. Kat, who was like the female, like disguisey assassin girl, was played by Mona Marshall, who was in about 1 million different things. It was in a bunch of South Parks. She was in a bunch of video games. Like her credits just go on and on and on. let's see here. Marshall Ansara was General Warhawk, which he was the villain, of course, because his name was General Warhawk. And I remember he sort of looked like, if you guys seen The Boys, you know, the main character, like I think they put gauze or something in his cheeks, so he has the puffed out cheeks, and that was General Warhawk. He had the big puffed out cheeks, and he was always like ordering people to, like, you know, burn down the rainforest or something.
Didn't they do that in The Godfather?
Right, with Marlon Brando too. Peter Cullen was Sergeant Havoc. Peter Cullen was also everything. And then Mad Dog was Frank Welker. And Turbo was James Avery, who was the father in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and more important to me, another character we'll talk about in a few minutes. And I just remember, like, it was a super, super action-packed show. It was like super pro environment, and had, looking back on it, like one of the best voice casts of any cartoon show at the time, with like every single one of the main characters is just like somebody that's done, like, I think the of the main cast, the person with the fewest acting credits is like 185 or something like that. So at that point, if you walked in with only like
Frank Welker and Peter Cullen are in the same thing again.
Well, right. I mean, of course. And Alan Oppenheimer too. Yeah. So it was a really, really fun series. So did you guys not catch this one?
I didn't know it was a thing.
Really? Kale?
Nope.
I don't know that I've ever seen it, but I believe that it was a thing. I just have to know.
Well, I'm not lying to you, Kale.
Did they show like the Rambo character tying the red band?
Yes, that's the intro. That's like, he ties up the thing and he puts the knife in thing and he like ties his boots.
He did.
Did he jam a bunch of sticks into people's legs?
No, they couldn't show that directly on the cartoon, but it's implied.
It's implied.
Especially for the real evildoers. So I
blow
remember
somebody up with bow and arrow.
Yeah, I remember it being a thing, but I never watched it.
I think I got a VHS of it.
Yeah, but they were all bad.
I think it was some kind of a, like, it maybe came with one of the toys or something like that. That's one of the other weird things I think in the 80s is you would have just random toys where you'd have like G.I. Joe and like Luke Skywalker and, you know, a Care Bear. And like, you know, if you're on a long car trip, like your parents would just grab like 4 toys and it's like, okay, those are the toys you have for the road and make it work. And so you just like, yeah, John Rambo is teaming up with the Care Bears to learn the Force, I guess. So
that I was going to say, I don't know if this is just my perception, but it seems like there are a lot of things in the 80s that were really of questionable relevance that still got their own toy lines.
Oh,
like
yeah.
A couple of the things we're not even talking about in 1986, Silverhawks. And Inhumanoids.
Inhumanoids.
I'm happy to talk about those if you want to. I just don't know. I never watched them.
I don't really know that much about them. I just remember that they had toy lines and not like 2 action figures. They had like 6 heroes and 6 villains, and the Inhumanoid villains were gigantic.
Here's Wetland! Nasty Redwood! Let him go, Tendril! I'll get you next time!
I think I remember Silverhawks. That sounds familiar, at least.
They were very stylish. I thought they looked cool. But I never watched the cartoon. I don't know anything about them.
Maybe we should do a show about nostalgic toys.
Isn't that just all toys? Okay, so that's Rambo. I don't know. I was just amazed by the cast. It's just everybody on Earth that was like a big voice actor at the time. And it's especially funny because the show was like, it wasn't like a big show. I think it lasted 65. I stand correct. 65 episodes. How did that show go 65 episodes?
Spin-off of First Blood.
65 episodes in one season. Holy cow. So it started, that's just nuts. I like the little things you run into when you're sort of doing some research on these things. So the first episode of Rambo, called First Strike, because of course it was on April 14th, 1986. The last episode was on December 18th, 1986. So that means between April and December, they did 65 episodes of the show. That blows my mind. I mean, a
April
Netflix
14th.
series nowadays doesn't get to 65 episodes until like season 4 or 5.
Imagine they're recording like 3 of them a day.
Oh, they have to be. That'd be recording. And animators working overtime and recycling animation too. I'm guessing that John Rambo walks past the same rock or throws the same rock like 14 times in a row.
I think you're projecting. That's from He-Man.
I think it's kind of from everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even the cartoons I loved, you'd start to see that a lot.
I actually am pretty sure that the He-Man walking scene is a draw over of the Tarzan walking scene.
Oh, I'm sure it's because I mean, like, who's going to waste artists at that point? You know, I mean, you're pumping out so many cartoons. Like who has the time to do everything original?
Well, and then I mean, imagine how little animation you had to put into Coyote and Roadrunner, and then you could reuse like background mountains in the desert. So I mean, once you flattened him like 7 times, you just redo it.
And most of the time, you couldn't even see the character. They were just like going so fast or so far away.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get to put together a montage. I'm not going to do this, by the way. Somebody who's better editing than me should put together a montage of all of the just recycled scenes. I think that would be pretty interesting. Like 14 different characters walking by the same pond, wearing almost the same outfit, with just like slightly different colors.
And at the end, you could tag on Macho Man Savage going.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
All right. So probably the biggest cartoon of 1986, whether it was your favorite or not, was The Real Ghostbusters. I think that there had been, a period of time. Let's see. So the real Ghostbusters comes out in September, and the original Ghostbusters comes out in, let's see here. Oh my God. It came out in September also. That's crazy. They literally came out almost the same day. So the real Ghostbusters came out on September 13th. The original Ghostbusters came out on September 8th of 1986. So yeah, you don't get much closer than that. But this had like the characters that people recognize from the movie. Again, you can argue whether or not that makes it better or not, but for a lot of people, it made it better. I watched it a million times. It was because they turned Slimer from being like a villain to just being like a cute, like a pet, basically.
Yeah.
You portray him as a villain in the movie? I mean,
They did in the first one.
He slimed somebody.
He's like destroying the library or something.
what?
No, the library was the librarian ghost. He was like destroying like the little dining area, the dining room at that hotel.
Controversial take. I don't think it's that great a movie.
What?
Jim, what is your opinion of Ghostbusters? Say between what's the score between 1 and 10?
Movie or the
Yeah.
cartoon?
The movie.
I don't know. It's like 6.
Yeah.
On the 80s comedy scale, I think it's better than Stripes or I think all in all, it's probably better than Caddyshack. I mean, Caddyshack definitely has better scenes, but man, the second half of the movie is just hard to watch and get through.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think there's like I love the scene with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase where Chevy Chase hits his ball into Bill Murray's like little hovel that he lives in, and he keeps like giving him pot and like rum and shit. And
Yeah, I mean that part is fantastic for
He's
sure.
talking about Kentucky bluegrass, but it's not grass.
yeah, that's a good
And
one.
then-
I don't know.
His
I think I
advice
like
from the llama.
Ghostbusters. I don't love it. I don't think it's like sacrosanct or anything. Did you guys all watch the new the Afterlife movie?
I have not yet, but I intend to.
I didn't see the newest one. I saw the first remake. I didn't see the second one. I don't think.
Seeing the honest trailers of it, and apparently it's mostly just about remembering the first movie.
Yeah, there's one scene where I literally was in the theater and out loud, not too loud, but like in like a whisper, I was like, "Don't say it, don't say it," and they said it, and I was like, "Oh, that's so disappointing." Like, have you ever seen somebody make a joke that's so bad you kind of want them to die so that they never they don't have to feel the shame of the joke they just said, and you're like, "Oh God,
Yes.
what if you just fell over and exploded or something?"
Jim Brewer.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But no, it's just like there's a scene where it's so convoluted to get a guy to say one of the lines from the original movie, and you're just like, and it's so set up. Like you can see the joke coming from like the other hilltop. It's like, hey, we need to do our, and it's like, no, don't do it. Don't you're like telegraphing this so far off that like you can see with like it's coming slowly ambling into sight. And then they say the joke and you're just like, oh God, that's so, I think I lost my cringe like reaction or something. It's so cringy. Yeah, not a good one. Not a good movie. Although weirdly enough, that movie has a ton of kind of like surprise little cameos that you don't understand why there was a surprise cameo there. Like just, this isn't really a spoiler because I won't say who he plays, but like J.K. Simmons pops up for like literally 45 seconds, maybe not even 45 seconds. And you're like, oh, cool, that's J.K. Simmons, but why?
Why not? He's one of my favorite little character actors.
I literally don't think he has a line of dialogue in the movie. Like he's there, and then he's just kind of like, then he's gone. And you're like, that was weird.
Because he hates Spider-Man.
It's like you almost want to just like have a movie with J.K. Simmons character, even though you don't like that character, just so you can get away from the movie. Yeah, I guess I'm pretty negative on Avengers, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I liked cartoon art though. I think it was fun. You get to see lots of cool little villains and things like that. I think the thing that 80s cartoons did the best was like building little worlds with all sorts of interesting characters that you sort of look forward to seeing.
I think I watched all of the episodes of the real Ghostbusters. It's another one of those ones I was always surprised didn't get banned. But
wow, you were able to watch that one,
but
not G.I. Joe.
But you didn't have much to say about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There isn't a whole lot to say. At the time, I thought it was kind of neat knowledge, but then I came to realize that ghosts aren't a real thing. So it was like, well, all that's out the window. So
what?
Are you sure?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Jim, what do you have to say about the real Ghostbusters instead of the fake Ghostbusters?
So I feel like I watched a ton of these, and like Brandon, there's not a whole lot to say. Like, talk about formulaic shows.
Yeah, it's not overly complex at all.
I'm sure I've watched a ton of episodes, and none of them stand out to me.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet that I watched the majority of the episodes. I just remember it being fun. I don't remember it being like something that I would, that I was like super into, where it was like, long drawn out storylines, but I remember liking it a lot.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, it's very episodic. Like, I don't even remember a backbone storyline to it.
Interesting. It had a good cast. So Lorenzo Music played Peter Venkman. Lorenzo Music, popularly Garfield, and in the episode in one character in Gummy Bears. When he left the show after 2 seasons, then Dave Coulier of Fuller House fame. Actually, I'm not sure. Is Dave Coulier in Fuller House?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. I haven't watched that one at all. It always seemed too cringy to watch.
Him and Uncle Jesse were in it.
And then
I know they were in the previews.
Frank Welker played Ray Stan Slimer, the Marshmallow Man, Mayor Lenny Klotch, Manx, and Scareface. Just keeping on doing everything. Arsenio Hall played Winston Zedmore in the first few seasons. And I think that's.
What about the guy who played the guy who made him shut the thing down in the first movie?
Oh, the EPA guy, Walter Peck.
I mean, he plays a really good hard ass, like, I don't like you guy.
I have to say, that's one of the things that I've always kind of held against the Ghostbusters, or the movie, is this idea that the EPA was some kind of a villain. I mean, Go back and watch that movie again, and everything Walter Peck is saying is absolutely right. Like, they don't have the training to do this. They're not taking proper precautions. Like, he's right. They should be fine.
They have a nuclear reactor. They're
Right.
carrying
They have a
around
nuclear
mini
reactor in the
nukes
middle of
the
Manhattan.
back.
So
No.
replace the Ghostbusters with a giant oil corporation and then replay that in your head and see how that works out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like, I
That
mean,
is
no,
what
they
it's
should be sanctioned. They should be arrested. They're going to blow up the city. They're
Well, I
absolutely
mean,
going to blow up the city.
Even your worst oil corporations don't have a nuclear reactor in the middle of the city.
Yet.
And I mean, their thing was, he kind of proves them right, because they flipped a switch and then they released every ghost. Like, why is there some kind of safety precaution to prevent that from happening? No, I think the Ghostbusters were wrong. Just saying. But it does, like, I feel like there's a lot of kids of our generation that sort of took some of that to heart. Like, oh, look at this bureaucrat coming in to do this thing. And I think that did do like a little bit of damage to people. Like, the idea that, the government's going to come in and do this harm, and not that four assholes that don't know what they're doing aren't the ones that are doing the harm.
Well, and you got Reagan up at the top saying that government is the problem.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, what about OSHA? Well, I never saw an OSHA guy in there.
Well, there should have been. And I don't care how big the Twinkie was. So we're not too late in, and we've only got a few from 1987 that I really want to talk about. So I think we're just going to bust right on into 1987 and kiss 1986 goodbye. So I just literally did that. And now this is one, I think we're going to use this as a way to talk about both the TV show and the animated series. And that is Alf, the animated series. And I remember watching Alf all the time and absolutely loving that show.
I don't remember the cartoon.
I don't really remember the cartoon that much either. But I mean, it's the same character, and I want to talk about Alf. Except for the fact that he ate cats. That was like a little disturbing.
I was going to say, do you hate cats?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it ever
weird.
actually did. It never actually showed him like grabbing a cat and like ripping its head off with his teeth or anything like that. So maybe it was just all a gag. Maybe it was just like a goof.
Maybe you were just supposed to accept that people eat things that you don't normally eat, and we're supposed to look at things in a different aspect.
No, I don't think you can eat cats. I don't think you're supposed to eat cats. In fact, we probably shouldn't eat the meat we eat, but I'm not ready to go vegan yet. The two episodes that I remember are, one of them, there was a guy from who's the father.
I can picture the father on the TV show, and I've kind of
Bob Shumway.
I've always wondered if he wasn't the inspiration for Calvin's father in Calvin and Hobbes. I thought they kind of looked alike.
Certainly possible. Anyway, he brings somebody home who is incredibly boring, and it's played by a guy who plays boring really well. And the guy just like, he doesn't have conversations. He just like quotes like statistics and recites lines and things like that, just kind of randomly. And in the 80s, that was a winner.
Like John Arbuckle.
No, I'm sorry. The Tanners. They're Tanners. Max Wright played Willie Tanner, who's the father.
Wasn't the Full House people Tanners too? Are they related?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's all a conspiracy.
Alfie, the little girl's cats.
And Alf was actually played by a person. It was Haley. It was not Vin Diesel. He's short, but he's not that short. Mihaly Mazaros.
He's not like Tom Cruise short.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just a really fun show. The cartoon, I think I've seen the cartoon, but I don't know. The character was fun. Just kind of a goofy sort of a character, and it ended off with him maybe going back to space or getting captured.
Who cares?
I don't remember the cartoon at all.
No, I mean the actual TV show, the live action TV show.
Oh no,
I think
a happy
ending. He could have gone to a planet full of cats. Would have been awesome.
The cats take revenge.
Right.
You never met like a
If it was a planet full of cats, I'm pretty sure they would win.
very possible. So the next one, this was a big show, and I think it's maybe one of the best video game adaptations of a TV show ever, and that's of course DuckTales. Also in the running for best theme song ever. The DuckTales video game was great. Did you guys play it?
No.
It was for the regular NES, and it had this great combination of it's relatively simple to learn. You know, I mean, you're Scrooge McDuck, and you're going to find, I don't know, pieces of something that your nemesis has gone to get. And there's like, I think 4 or 5 or 6 different worlds you have to go to. And Scrooge McDuck is very easy to control, but it's also the worlds are kind of varied and they can get challenging, but not too challenging. It hit a really, really great sweet spot where everybody who played it could beat it if you sort of put in, you know, a little bit of time to learn how to do it correctly. And that was in a time where a lot of games were just not beatable by most people. A lot of games were just like, nope, I just, you know, I'll get one level into this and die immediately. And that's just the way games were at that time. Whereas now I think a lot of video games have a tendency to hold your hand through most of the thing, which is fine, but it's neat to have tough games too. There should be a mix, I think.
I would have said it was, I mean, I'm not a gamer, but I would have said it was more the reverse.
Oh no, most games today are relatively easy, I think. Not all games.
But there's the one like where they the old Atari one where like the square tanks shoot square bullets at you. I mean, you barely do anything.
Yeah, but try playing
Missile Command, you barely do anything.
Well, what I'm talking, I think the real difficulty started, although some of the games were very difficult. Also, a lot of those games were meant for arcades where they're meant for you to die a lot, so you have to keep pumping quarters into them. But like especially the Nintendo, the NES, I think was sort of became the peak of really tough games, like games that were really hard to master anyway. But DuckTales I think was a pretty easy one. But I think what are your guys' experience with DuckTales?
I love the cartoon, and I probably can still do, like, if you were playing the intro, I could probably still do it.
I bet you can't swim through a giant room full of gold coins.
Nope.
Yeah, that really sticks with you, doesn't it?
It's funny. You would just break every bone in your body like the second you hit that, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
pretty much.
You
turn into the Wile E. Coyote accordion.
The thing I think that was
gold enough, loved it more, it wouldn't break your bones.
The thing that I think was really great about it, and this is what the best 80s cartoons did, is it really built a world. Like there's lots of characters, and you know you'll have one episode with the other Scottish billionaire who's like his rival. Sometimes you'll have the Beagle Gang, and you know there'll be the who was it, like the lady who was she like a vampire or something.
No, yeah.
I remember the big macho pilot.
Launchpad McQuack.
Barrel chest.
Launchpad McQuack. And he had his own show where it was like Sky or something. That was later on though.
Yeah. So was Darkwing Duck set in the same universe or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Darkwing Duck is a spinoff.
But that doesn't mean it couldn't be the same universe.
Well, right. So that means it would be in the same universe.
Somebody call Marvel. Hey, Marvel. Just in the same universe.
The Duck multiverse.
Yo, Disney.
The Duckverse. Camelverse.
Camelverse.
So apparently they were separate. They weren't actually spinoffs of each other. I guess everybody kind of thought it was a spinoff, but it wasn't. Except they did share. Apparently, Launchpad McQuack and Gizmo Duck both have like little appearances in Darkwing Duck.
I forgot.
I think Launchpad and Baloo are kind of similar characters.
No, Baloo's like a lazy fat bastard that just gets lucky.
He's also a pilot, though.
He's
in
awesome.
the one episode.
He's anti-work. Don't put him down.
Yeah.
What was the show Baloo was on then? Because that was kind of a spinoff too, wasn't it?
Was it Rescue Rangers?
Tailspin.
Tailspin.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I said that.
By the way, I don't know if people are watching. People are watching this in the future. We live in the time where they just came out with the trailer for the new Rescue Rangers live action / animated movie. I think maybe it's just animated. I couldn't really tell.
It's CG. Live action CG.
Does anybody have anything else to say about DuckTales?
No, I don't know.
Not.
It was good. I liked it. But again, I can't tell you. I had forgotten even that he had that other Scottish guy. And yeah, I wouldn't have guessed there was all that much of a backbone story running behind it. But
Like, I remember it being a thing, but I was a teenager and I was moving on to other things at that point in my life.
It was 1987.
Okay, I was a preteen and I was moving on to other things.
Like, what were you getting prepared for your first job interview or something?
No, I was like more involved with like football and stuff like that, and sports and stuff.
I guess. All right, the last one for 1987 that we're going to talk about, and I apologize, there is a lot more shows that take place in this year, but they're honestly just not ones that we're super familiar with. There was I don't know, I'll just mention a few of these. There was Brave Star, which I know that was kind of like a cowboy in space kind of thing, which I always thought looked really cool, but I never saw an episode of it. There's a Hello Kitty series in that year. Hello Kitty. Mad Balls.
Goodness gracious, great balls of fire!
Oh, Mad wasn't it like it was just like a ball, but they had like a crazy like monster face on one side, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
My Pet Monster. I remember the toys for that. Sky Captain or Sky Commanders. Starcom, the U.S. Space Force. Holy shit, they knew Space Force was coming back in 1987. By the way, I'll bet you like some amount of money that's where Donald Trump got the idea for Space Force.
probably.
Oh man!
Listen, I saw a cartoon
How was nobody
like
talked about
40
this?
years ago, and it gave me an idea.
How was nobody ever talked about the idea that there was a Space Force in the 1980s? Oh boy!
Saw this on a cartoon, and I think I can do it. Stephen Wright joke.
Tiger
Wow.
Sharks. I remember Tiger Sharks a little bit.
Apparently, even Space Force had toys.
Of course it did. It's because everything had toys.
Seriously, it's crazy.
You guys and your multiple screens.
I mean, nothing had toys. There were toys that were just toys of nothing. Like it was just like tough guys, and it was like that's like there's just like action figures, and there's like not even a cartoon. It's just like the tough guys, you know.
I bought some demon once. Like there was a inexpensive toy line, and one of the characters was like seriously, he had red skin all over the place. He had big pointy ears, and he had black wings that you stuck on your back. I remember I got him at the mall one weekend. I was going to my grandma's, and I remember her specifically like looking at it like, why is that a toy?
Like I said, I had Hawkeye Pierce and Father Mulcahy.
I probably could have used Father Mulcahy. Fight the demon.
Play with the demon.
Yep.
So there was also Visionaries Knights of the Magic Land. Didn't they get a comic book?
Yes, and they had action figures too. They had hologram things in their chest.
You know, at some point we might come back and grab one of these shows that none of us have watched, because a lot of these stuff is available on YouTube. Just go through one of the seasons or something and come back and talk about it, because I think that could be kind of interesting. I think we might be more interested in doing one about, you know, the stuff we've watched, because it's just kind of like it's all new.
You reminded me, Jim, of a toy I had when I was a kid, and I have no idea what it's from. The guy had like kind of like a blue skin, And he was wearing a black outfit with like red stripes on it, and he almost looked like a bat. He had like weird pointy ears and like a big like face with fangs, and I have no idea what he's from. I have no idea what he's from. I was like, thanks. I don't know what this is for.
What color was it? Was he blue or purple or?
He was like a purplish blue, mostly blue, but kind of purplish.
That
For
sounds
some
kind of familiar,
reason-
but I don't have any idea.
For some reason, there's a toy line that's sticking in my head, and I don't know if it's right. It's like Lords of something, and the main character is like he has blue skin on one side and like red skin on the other, but you can like see his veins. And he has
Sounds very suggestive.
he has like thumbs on either end of his hand because
Holding a peyote button.
you can turn him around, right?
I mean, I get that. I get that.
Sides.
That's not
So it sounds a little bit like maybe one of the action figures from that line, but I can't remember exactly what the name of that was. It's Lords of something or other.
So you started doing drugs at a young age, is what you're saying?
We can't stop here.
13.
So I want to talk about. I think this may be my favorite. You know, it's one of those things I feel like kids of my generation I'm supposed to have to decide between G.I. Joe and Transformers. I like both of those very much. But the cartoon that I remember watching the most religiously was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
I love that show. It was better than maybe any show I remember in that era at world building. And as I've said before, that's something I like a lot. Where you have recurring characters, you have one-off characters that are all really interesting. Whereas a lot of the sort of, I would say, cartoons of less quality, it was basically like 5 main characters, a main villain, and then like kind of a villain of the week that would pop in. And that formulaity, that's a word.
It was just a conspiracy to sell pizza.
Well, maybe, but it worked. Now, Jim, did you read the comic books at all? The Kevin Eastman comics?
No, I did not read those.
I should say Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird.
Yeah,
It's my understanding it was basically written as kind of a parody of Daredevil, right?
Honestly, I don't know that much about the history of the Turtles. I do know that even though the Laird series was obviously the original series and the basis, it seems like the Archie series kind of the most popular one from what I've seen.
Now, what came first, the Archie series or the?
Oh, I'm
the
sure
cartoon?
the Laird series came first. The Archie series wasn't terribly long after. I want to say it's like 1991 or something like that. But
I was trying to think, did the cartoon come first or did the Archie series come first?
my guess is that they're probably simultaneous, but the cartoon series, like the Archie series, is probably based on the cartoon series, but I don't know that for sure.
Because they had a very similar art style, I think.
Yes.
Like the turtles look the same. Whereas if you look at the Eastman and Laird book, like the Eastman and Laird book is a lot more gritty. But it's my understanding, because first of all, the turtles and the Eastman and Laird all wear the same headband. Again, it is grittier. And again, it seemed to me like it was kind of a parody of Daredevil, because, obviously the main villain in the Daredevil stuff is the hand. And so Eastman and Laird called their villains the foot. And it just, I don't know. I thought it's kind of entertaining, but again, the one that I remember is the TV show. Just like, you had like the neutrinos were really, really cool. And they were like the rad dude aliens that would come in their flying cars. I think did the Battletoads start off on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or were they totally separate?
I remember Battletoads. I played the shit out of that on Nintendo with fucking Curtis.
Very difficult game, by the way.
It was
much like the Transformers. There is a ton of turtle spinoffs too. Close and I have watched a lot of those.
And there's Usagi Yojimbo, who I don't remember if that started off as a Turtles spinoff or it was a separate thing that they sort of brought in. He's like the samurai.
No,
rabbit.
I don't think it was a spin-off. I think they were in the same world on like that first graphic novel.
Okay. Oh, actually, so the Battletoads were created as a rival to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were expressly to be sort of a competition. And then
I remember I went to my grandma's house in St. Louis and saw them, and it must have been before they came to an Iowa market because I saw them there. We saw a few episodes, and it was like another year or two before I got to see them up here in Iowa.
James Avery played Shredder. James Avery unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. I thought he had such a great voice for Shredder because he had a great way of, and I think this was a tough thing to do in 80s cartoons, especially for kids, of being menacing, but also being able to be goofy too, and being equally good at both. And I think that, in that period, you sort of had villains that were either sort of supercilious and kind of ridiculously over the top, or you had villains that were kind of a joke. And I think Shredder kind of split the difference between the two.
I liked what's his name? Krang. I like Krang a lot too.
Yeah, and speaking of a character that could be ridiculous and menacing, because like he had that huge like body thing that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't work very well. I think my favorite villain was Slash, not the Guns N' Roses frontman or lead guitarist, but he was like like an evil version of the Turtles, except he was like bigger and stronger, and so we could like push them around and stuff. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also had one of the best arcade games at the time. It was kind of along the same lines as the X-Men arcade cabinet, which was probably the most powerful, the most famous and well-liked cabinet at the time. And I remember having played the Turtles arcade game and then seeing that there was a Turtles game out for the NES and buying it and thinking it was going to be the same thing. And it was not, because at the time, obviously the home systems didn't have nearly the power that an arcade cabinet did. And so, the home version was much less cool.
No, I like the Turtles. I thought they were pretty good. What's the one? Casey Jones was a good side character. There's the one guy. He was like a black guy who ended up getting caught in like some sort of experiment gone wrong or something. And he becomes like a machine kind of thing.
Cyborg?
I'm not sure. There was a ton of villains on there. I mean, this thing lasted, let's see here. Looks like it lasted all the way to 95 or 96 maybe, which is an awful far into the 80s, for them to get. Yeah, it went 100 and, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. 193 episodes from 1987 to 1996. I like the Fly, the guy who turned into the Fly, Baxter
Stockman. That's it. That's what I was thinking.
Stockman, yeah. And it's funny because in the last Turtles movie, live action Turtles movie, the one that Transformers director Michael Bay did, was played by Medea. What's his name? Tyler Perry.
The Rat King was also pretty good. The Rat King was menacing as hell.
For I am the Rat King.
You will address me with respect. I am the Rat King.
Yeah, he had a great voice. And I liked it. I sort of like that was one of those characters where, sometimes because he lived in the sewers too, and sometimes he was against the Turtles and sometimes he was with them. And so you kind of had that characters that were sort of morally gray a little bit.
Did you guys have very many of the toys?
I had a fair amount of toys.
Were the toys really posable at first or not until later?
They were like the posable kind where they're just at like the hip and at the shoulder, but
Okay.
not elbows or knees.
'Cause
But they were
I-
also
I-
pretty heavy duty too. They were like
Yeah.
pretty solid.
So I get my boys some at garage sales, but it must have been a later generation because they were like the hands twisted and stuff like that. They were pretty posable.
Yeah, I think I had the main ones. I never had Krang, but I had like the main turtles and probably I think Splinter too. Splinter was cool. Yeah, I don't know. It was a great show, and it was just like nice world building. Always a lot of fun stories. And I think the nice thing about having that big world is that you can keep it fresh. You can have a lot of different stories. If one thing starts to sort of die out, you can bring in a whole different set of secondary characters. I don't know that one.
Well, there's a thing you start to notice too that like the first season will usually have like a big bad guy, and it'll take the entire season to defeat him. And then you'll go like 2 or 3 seasons in a row with different bad guys who are tangentially related. And then the big bad guy will come back and like the 4th season or something, and you either have to deal with him or he's like kind of weirdly the savior of the group or something. No, I don't know. There's a lot of tropes in there too.
Kurt Vonnegut talks about like the shape of stories, and I think a lot of cartoon shows have kind of the same story shape as each other.
It's nice when stories have a shape and a beginning, middle, and end.
Well, if you get a chance, watch a video about Kurt Vonnegut describing what exactly he means by the shape of a story. It's a very interesting description. It sort of makes you look at stories you've read previously and sort of diagram out their shape. And Kurt Vonnegut likes stories that are very, very oddly shaped because he's Kurt Vonnegut and he's weird and he's great. That being said, I think that's the last one we're going to cover, 1987. And I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night and come back next week and do 1988 and maybe 1989. We'll kind of see what we have left. But everybody, please leave in the comments what your favorite shows are. What should we have covered? Are there any shows that we should watch and give our thoughts on? If so, just leave them in the comments below. I want to thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And have a good drink and have a good day.